Hi, this is Barbara Diaz. It's about Jeremy Bamber. I became interested in the case in recent years because in 1983 my husband and myself bought a caravan at the Osea Road site. Our family spent many weekends and holidays in Essex away from our home in the East End of London. Having read as much as possible about Jeremy, I feel there are a few misconceptions around the case and about Jeremy that I'd like to put forward. As an outsider to this rural part of Essex, let me give you a social picture of the history of Malden up to and during the 1980s. Malden was an Anglo-Saxon port, and in 958 it contained the Royal Mint, issuing coins for the late Anglo-Saxon and early Norman kings. This set the upper and middle class prestige in the area for generations to follow. In 1982, the population was, and still is, essentially middle class. One doesn't walk down the high street and see an Essex girl. An Essex girl would call the population snobs. In the 1980s, there was little or no crime. Almost all the people were comfortably off, and some of the families were distinctly wealthy. The Speakmans, being one of the biggest landowners in the area, were a wealthy family equal to royalty in Malden. And Neville Bamber, being a retired RAF officer, marrying June Speakman, also gained respect of the Malden population. It was then that Neville and June did the unthinkable and adopted outsiders, Sheila and Jeremy. As the Bambers only employed local staff in their businesses, Jeremy was sent away to school because he would inherit the estate, and as the boss, it would be difficult for him to give orders to employees who had been best friends with at school. Because of the status of the Bambers in the area, interest in the family was similar to our interest to the royal family, and some of us like nothing better than some decent gossip about them. Some of us don't give a pig's burp about any of it, but in Malden the Bambers were often the talk of the town. This was the state of play in the 1980s in Malden, very much a closed shop. Our connection with Malden began in 1983. My husband and I were invited to tea at friends' caravans situated on the Osea Road site. It was a big joke because it had been difficult to find by car, and we said things like it would have been easier to have popped down the road to their house since we lived in the same street. Osea is a private site, which means it's not a holiday camp type campsite. You bought your caravan and you had it for yourself. You could not rent it out to anyone other than your own family. Each van had its own plot, a fenced-off garden that you put your car in. Dogs were allowed on your plot, but had to be on the lead around the camp. Many families, for all the school holidays, stayed there, except for Christmas, of course. The camp opened on the last week in March, or Easter, and closed on the last day of October each year. During the closed season, you could go down for the day, but you were not allowed to stay. This was because the year-round rates would have to be paid, as it would then be considered a residential site. On the day we were having tea, we walked along the sea wall and saw a caravan for sale. We bought the van and went down for weekends and holidays with our children. It was situated against the sea wall opposite the spinney, a group of 6 trees. Every child was attracted to the spinney, and we spent many days watching for accidents when a child would fall out of a tree, sorting out first aid and finding a mum or a dad. We would see Neville walking around the site, and if you were out in the garden he would say morning, etc. Jeremy was a normal young man. He was not a womaniser. It was the other way round. When he was working on site, groups of girls would find something very important to do near where he was working. Jeremy would just continue working, taking no notice of anyone. He was never rude. If anyone spoke to him, he would answer. I would say he was shy. However, what I believed to be normal behaviour for a boy of this age was considered dreadful behaviour by the chattering classes in Malden. The sea wall encircled the camp. The bit around the camp was tarmacked, so people could walk or ride a bike along with ease. It was always busy during weekends and school holidays. Family would go to their vans and spend the entire holiday there. Fathers would either travel back and forth to work or stay from Friday to Sunday night there. Children would be up late. Barbecues were group affairs where several families would get together and party, sometimes till the early hours. This is why I dismissed the police claim that Jeremy rode along the wall on an August night without being seen. It would have been impossible to do because people would be on the seawall, night fishing, sitting, talking, etc. all night. Everyone knew Jeremy and he would have been noticed. After Jeremy was imprisoned, the family took over the site, were gentrifying everything, and everything changed on the camp. We paid $1,000 a year for our plots, but clearly this wasn't enough. We were told in no uncertain terms that we had to buy a new van. No vans were allowed on the site that were more than 5 years old. They could offer us a new van for the discount price of £14,000. Since I was earning $5,000 a year at the time and my husband was on about $11,000, we said we couldn't afford their fabulous offer. It was difficult enough trying to find £1,000 a year rent as it was. We were then told that our van would be towed off the current plot and given a plot at the back of the camp by the rubbish dump for the same rent. Sadly, we said that if this were the case, we would have to leave the camp. The answer was to that the Boutflour management was our van would be towed off the site and we would have to find a buyer and pay them 20% of the selling price plus £600 towing fee. We were distraught. As far as we were concerned, we were being thrown off the site for no good reason. Then they were out to make as much money as possible, unlike the Bambers that wanted an income but were also cared for people and had a chance of a peaceful holiday in beautiful surroundings. Everyone on the site was shocked about Jeremy. We couldn't believe that the boy was capable of such an act of murder. There were a few, of course, who believed it would be true, but there's always one. We want Jeremy to be the very least to be bailed, pending an appeal right now. Thank you for listening. Bye.